Of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis of Rwanda. Before we begin, I would like to highlight some special guests that are here. First by our mayor, the Honorable or the Worship Amarjit Sohi. I would also like to welcome and give thanks for his presence here, MLA David Shepard, as well as the Provincial Minister of Labor and Immigration, Casey Madu. We're very thankful for your presence here, and it is an honor to have you guys here. And so our next event is a video testimony, and it's going to be presented by Emery.
Our community is built by survivors of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis in Rwanda. Over 1 million lives lost in 100 days. Who were the people lost in the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis in Rwanda? To us, they were fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, grandparents, friends, and neighbors. They were humans. They loved their families, communities, and their country. They were Tutsi. As they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Our testimony today is through the pictures from our community. We wanted to share our loved ones' stories through these pictures. We have been held on to preciously for the last 28 years. These pictures are the memories which help survivors explain and share their memories to their children about their grandparents and family members lost in 1994 genocide against the Tutsis in Rwanda. We still remember as it was yesterday. 28 years has gone by, but their memories live among us every day. Children from survivors have grown. They are taking in charge to keep memories of their family members they did not get a chance to know alive. They learn about their family through stories and learn how they look like through these pictures. Reka twibuke kwibuka abacu ubwiza bwabo ubuhanga n'imico by'abaranga wisangiza abato badukomokaho n'abazadukomokaho batabashije kuba. These men were strong and full of life. They were father figures to many in their families and communities. They were hardworking people and endured a lot in their life. They had names and faces. These women were our brave mothers with the tenacity to build and support their families and communities. They were women with a big heart. Samuel, our teachers, health providers, they nurtured and supported everyone on their path. They had names and faces. These children had a bright future. They were their family's treasure. They were the future of the nation. They had names and faces. They were young to die. Every time we remember them, we shed tears. Remember and wonder about their lives if they were still with us. We shed tears because our children will never get the love and life lessons from them. The only thing we can do is show them their memories through these pictures. As we remember and play the next sequence of pictures, take a moment to think of the people on these pictures. These pictures are from our community. Our father, mother, siblings, family members of the people who might be sitting beside you. Bapfuye urw'agashinyaguro, bishwe urubozo, bazira uko bavutse. Imiryango ya bamwe bashoboye kubona amafoto baragisangije ngo twibuke kwiyubaka. Tubahe icyubahiro bambuwe, tubaganire, tubavuge amazina, tubasubize isura ejo batazazira.
Up next, we will have a poem read by Mayoral. If you could please come.
Before I read this poem, there's two things I'd like to address. First and foremost, I'd like to acknowledge every single survivor in this room. The courage and the bravery you guys had coming to a new country, learning a new language, raising kids with morals, love, respect for others is not easy. And the older I get, the more wise I become, and the more I appreciate the lessons I learned. Coming to these memorials from a young age, I didn't really understand. I would just be running around with other kids, but the more I get older, the more I appreciate this, and the more I realize it's up to us to carry this for the years to come. When we have kids, we have to just make sure that they also hear the stories that our parents passed down to us. And the second thing I want to acknowledge is to any children of survivors. It may be hard, but I urge you to encourage your parents to share their stories with you, because within my own life, the older I got to ask my parents their stories, and I saw a side of them I never got to see, because, you know, as a kid, you just see your parents as invincible. You see them as people who could withstand pain. They never really show their emotions, but going through that and asking my parents what they went through, I learned stories that I'm going to share to my kids, and hoping that they'll share to their kids. And I just encourage you to ask your parents, because it'll make your bond stronger with them. And honestly, they'll be more comfortable around you, because it's not easy to talk about death. It's not easy to talk about trauma. But with a willing heart, and open ears, all is possible, and also with God. So today my poem is about seeing you again. I don't know what you've been through, but here's a promise you can cling to. If you mourn, God will strengthen you. I said in Matthew 5, verse 4, your pain, your sadness, your trauma, and your memory is worth fighting for. You were stripped of your dignity, but today I see you dressed in humility. I pray God provides each of you with the ability to allow you to trust Him again. Many of you have kids now, maybe even grandkids. Your stories will be heard. Your stories will be remembered. They cut down the trees, but the roots remain. The blood flows through our veins, and those trees grew again. May peace be in your hearts, knowing that one day you will see your parents, your siblings, your kids, your friends, and your loved ones again. On that glorious day, until then, we'll continue to pray for a better day.
Thank you, Mayoral, for your thoughtful poem and for your kind words and encouragement. I hope that we take that to heart and practice what you just told us. Up next is going to be a research presentation by Lisa.
Thank you, Daima. Hello, everyone. Liebe. First and foremost, before I start, I want to thank MKA and President E for giving me the opportunity to speak with you all today and share a research project that is so dear to me. Thank you. I also want to thank Dr. Sophia Ohani, who's sitting here with us today. She was my supervisor for this project, and she's also a dear friend to our community, so thank you, Dr. Sophie. Just waiting for the presentation slides to come up, but before I start, I was thinking if we could do a collective deep breaths, so a few deep breaths together, because it's important to talk about mental health, but it's also important to practice mental health, and especially in a time like this. So you just listen to my instructions, and you don't have to participate if you don't want to, but we're just all gonna inhale on my cue. So take a deep breath in. One more time. Inhale. Exhale. Feels nice, right? My name is Lisa Chuzizo. Just to introduce myself a little bit, for those of you who don't know me, I grew up in the community here, and I've been kind of involved, just watching my parents, but now I feel like as I'm growing up, I'm taking a little bit more leadership role and trying to understand my culture and my history for myself. Sorry, I'm just waiting for the slides, but yeah, so I had the opportunity to do a research presentation, and I kind of just want to talk to you about why I chose this topic and why I chose to do this research. So actually my uncle, he's sitting here in MAB, like a year ago, he asked me this question. He asked me, what does it mean for you to be a child of genocide survivors? That's a complex question. It's not easy to answer, and it's because it's a question of identity. It's a question of who am I? And those are the kind of questions that can take your whole life to answer. And so I've reflected on that question, and I think I've started to figure out what it means for me, and I've narrowed it down to a couple of things. I narrowed it down to one, being a child of genocide survivors means it's an act of resistance and it's an act of resilience. So me being alive here is a testament to the strength of my parents and to the resilience of my parents. And it's also a resistance to genocide ideology that didn't want a second generation to be here, let alone my parents, but definitely not me, you know? So that's how I view it. And I also view it as responsibility. And our speaker, Mr. Kadake, was talking about that earlier. He was talking about how we all have a responsibility. And for me, it's honoring the legacies of those that we lost. You know, I think about my grandparents, I think about my aunts, my uncles, all the people that I didn't get to meet, and all the people who didn't get to live out their stories, who didn't get to live out their lives. So for me, it's how can I dedicate part of my life to honoring them and to ensuring that generations to come are thriving and that they're healthy. So that's what it means for me. I'll just keep talking. So yeah, I'll be talking today about this research. So I did a research on intergenerational mental health. So when we're talking about intergenerational mental health, intergenerational trauma, what is that? And to put it simply, it's all the pain, all the suffering, all the trauma, all the history being passed down from one generation to another, from parent to child to grandchild, and so forth and so forth. And it's only passed down if healing doesn't occur between generations, if that trauma is not treated between generations. And so what I studied, I did a scoping review. So it's basically gathering as much information as I can about how children of survivors of the 1994 genocide in Rwanda against the Tutsis, how they're doing, mentally, mainly, but also physically. How are they doing? So that's what I looked at, and I just wanted to see what is written, what is being said about us, what is being said about my generation. And so I gathered the results, and I found 5 main themes, 5 key themes, and I'm going to share those with you. I just wanted to note that the articles and the research that I found were all based in Rwanda. So it was all children in Rwanda, and none outside of the country. So that definitely influences the results that we see. So just keep that in mind when I'm presenting you the results. So what did I find? Okay, I had really good slides. I had really good slides. Thank you. So the first theme was looking at the impacts. So the experiences, the mental health experiences that children are experiencing right now, are they associated to the traumas and the mental health symptoms that their parents are experiencing? And what I did find was most of the studies I found did say there was an association. So children of survivors were more likely to develop symptoms of anxiety, depression, PTSD, and even physical symptoms. And so that association for me is really important because you're starting to see how the experiences of children and the troubles that they're experiencing are due to the identity of them being a child of genocide survivors. But throughout my presentation, I want you to also know that trauma can be passed down, but also so can strength, so can values, and so can strength. Ooh, almost. So can strength, and so can values, and so can resilience. So one study found that resilience of parents was associated with resilience in children. So, yes. So the ability for parents to withstand challenges, to overcome adversity, was passed down to children. But in this field of intergenerational trauma, the bigger question is, how is this stuff being passed down? How is trauma actually going from one generation to another? And we still don't really know, and especially not in Rwanda, there haven't been many studies so far. Oh my goodness. So yeah, those are my parents. They're survivors. I don't know if I mentioned that. My parents are survivors, so I'm also a child of genocide survivors, so this is a really close project to me. This is where we are. Oh. It'll come. So yeah, resilience can also be passed down, but the question is how, and that's what we're trying to figure out, and I'll talk about certain pathways that were identified. The second key theme that was also talked about was how trauma of parents can affect how they parent and how they behave towards their children, and those kind of behaviors. And they found that parents that are experiencing mental health issues, PTSD, and those kinds of things, where it was associated with their behaviors of rejection towards their children. So that could be neglect of their needs, emotional needs, physical needs. It was like harsh behaviors towards their children, super strict behaviors, or even lack of warmth and affection towards their children, lack of understanding of their children. So their mental health issues can impact how they bond with their children. And that's really important because a parent-child bond is really crucial for how a child develops in a healthy way. So trauma can affect those bonds as well. And also talked about how parents who have troubles regulating their emotions, understanding their emotions, controlling their emotions, and understanding their children's emotions, how that can impact the relationship as well. So the third finding was focused on communication between parents and children. I think Nwari was talking about that. You know, asking your parents of their stories. You know, but what I found in the study was that parents have kind of this dilemma with sharing their stories. It's one hand, they want to educate their children and they want them to learn their history and they want them to learn of their experiences. But then the other hand, parents are afraid to kind of traumatize their children. They're afraid of that emotional harm, and that emotional harm is real as well. And so the parents were talking about those challenges. And the question that kind of came up is it always good to discuss genocide experiences with your children? And by good, I mean, we could define that, but does it impact the child in a positive way? And this one study talked about how children in Rwanda, when they learned about genocide experiences, whether it was at home or whether it was in schools or you know, through the public, it actually was associated with behavior problems, problems at school, and problems with their mental health, problems with communicating. I thought that was probably the most surprising finding, because I was like, how can learning, you know, lead to problems? Not lead or be associated with problems. So what this study tried to kind of explain is that there's too much information for these children, and it can kind of conflict. And with that confliction, it causes confusion and not a clear idea of what's going on. And that may be one of the reasons why you're seeing some of the problems in children. And another thing they talked about is that struggle, once again, that parents had with disclosing information to their children. Sometimes they wanted to make sure that they let the children know what happened before they hear from somewhere else. But in that, sometimes they're sharing stories when they're not ready to share their stories. And so there's a kind of emotional trauma that might be being passed on to their children, and they're not able to support their children either through that. So that was communicating genocide experiences from parent to child. Mr. Kadeke also talked about children born of genocidal rape, and he talked about what are the mental health impacts of that. And actually in my study, can you all hear me well? Yes. In my study, a lot of the research was focused on children of genocidal rape, so that's where a lot of the data comes from. And so there's an additional trauma with that, and they found that there was worse outcomes for children born of genocidal rape, even when comparing to just regular, children of survivors. And when it comes to communication between parent and child, there's another piece for children born of genocidal rape where they're learning about how they were born, they're learning about who their father is, and how that can cause both negative and positive effects in children. Because positive in the fact that, they're getting clarity on identity questions they had, because they hear things but they don't understand. And then they're also understanding their mothers better and getting a closer relationship with their mothers, because they can empathize with their mothers and kind of understand why maybe their mothers were acting the way they were. But then there's the other part where it's really painful to know that that's your origin. And it's really hard to deal with that, and the sadness and the anger, and even suicidal thoughts came in these children, because it's like they feel kind of purposeless, like who am I? What am I doing here? So there was also that pain too. So that's when we're talking about disclosing. It's not so simple as like just tell your child and it'll be okay. It's kind of complicated when we're talking about it. But one thing I did want to highlight once again is that children were also finding hope in their stories. When they found it, it made them accept themselves better, and it made them want to live their lives in a way that kind of fights back against the discrimination they face and the stigma that they face and that their mothers face as well. So there's also hope to be found in learning the truth. So the fourth main finding was also in relation to children born of genocidal rape, and it was talking about identity. So I have a quote here, and it was by a participant in one of the studies, and he said, when you have grown up, not treated like a human being, it affects you a lot. You feel like nothing, and life has no sense. And I think it really captured what it's like to live with that identity, because they're facing so much stigma, they're facing so much abuse from their families, from both their mother's side or father's side, for different reasons, in their school's life. They're facing so many self-esteem issues, identity questions. So purpose and meaning is really lost in those children, and knowing who you are is out the window. And so that really deeply affected the children. And there was also educational and economic barriers as well, because as much as children are facing stigma, so are their mothers for being raped, which is such a sad reality, but they're facing stigmas, and there's also economic issues there. So children are not able to go to school, and even if they have the money to go to school, they'll send the other children in the family that weren't born of genocidal rape first. And even if they make it to school, those children are not treated well, so then there's other problems there too. So there's also more like societal barriers as well for these children. But there were also coping mechanisms that these children employed. And so when you're in these kind of situations, when you're dealing with mental health, when you're dealing with trauma, you find ways, we as individuals, we find ways to cope. And sometimes they're healthy ways and sometimes they're not healthy ways, but you do what you do to survive. And so what these children said, they would strive for perfection, and they would try to keep up appearances like nothing's bothering them. And some of them tried to, remember it's a question about identity, they tried to distance themselves from their father's identity. Some of them would change their birthday, last name, whatever they can, to distance themselves from their father's identity. And then sometimes they would over-identify with their mother's more vulnerable identity, if that makes sense? Yeah, okay. So that was identity struggles. So the last main finding was youth's recommended ways of healing. They recommended ways of reconciliation. And so for children born in genocidal rape, I thought we were at the same place. It's okay. For children born in genocidal rape, they talked about specific ways that you can address the issues that they have, but I thought that they were pretty relevant for children that were not born of genocidal rape as well. They talked about creating spaces for youth discussions of the issues that they're having, and the specific needs that they have, that they need, and the support that they would need for that. They talked about youth-led associations to address their needs, and they talked about, this is specifically for children born in genocidal rape, talking about developing formal laws in Rwanda that recognizes them as also a vulnerable group as a result of the genocide, and protecting their rights as well. One other intervention that came as well was a sociotherapy. So some mothers in the studies, some of the mothers, they attended like group therapy, and they found that therapy did not only help the mothers heal, but also helped the mothers with their relationship with their children. So in therapy, they had a space to talk about their pain, talk about their trauma, but they also had a space to learn skills that they can take back to their children and communicate better with them. And so children felt more open and felt more comfortable talking to their parents, and they felt closer with them and more empathy for them. So those were some of the few recommendations as well that youths mentioned. So those were the 5 main themes. And when I think about the takeaways, I have them in a slide. I have the slide here. I'm not gonna, yes, thank you. I'm not gonna read them all, but I think really what I want to emphasize, and Mr. Yanake talked about it earlier, hello? Yes. Thank you. Mr. Kadeke was talking about is the level of atrocity. The concept of intergenerational trauma is kind of a deep one. Like, how can people that weren't even in that situation have so many negative outcomes? You know, have so much pain. There was one participant that said, "I don't feel for my mother, I feel with my mother." You know, and so there's just that level. It just shows how pervasive the legacies of genocide are. But what I want to emphasize is the other side of it too, the hope side of it, the resilience side of it, because we're all here, and that took something to get us here. And I think if we all work towards what story we want to tell for the future generations. I have that on the next slide. It's really about, when you're thinking about things of healing, you got to think about where you're trying to go. You want to think about, in 5 generations down, do you want to say, oh, people around are just filled with trauma, filled with issues, you know, filled with, you know, all kinds of things, or do you want to talk about a story of strength and of compassion, of hope, of love, forgiveness, unity, community, joy, you know? So I think that's where we have to start asking ourselves, what story do you want to tell? I was going to talk about some gaps in the research. So for me personally, as I continue to work in this, we need to start including more voices. Like I said, there was only research done in Rwanda, but us youth as like diaspora, where we have our own experiences too, and that brings on other, that has potentially other consequences as well. So expanding the children that we're studying, as well as not only focusing on children born of genocidal rape, as important as that is, but you know, doing more research. So basically expanding, and then expanding, like once again, talking about resilience and strength-based, not just, you know, talking about culture. There's things specific to our culture that brought us here, you know? And then also identifying the how. The how is really important. When we know how things are transmitted. Oh, you can't hear me very well?
Sorry for that.
No, that's okay.
Could you try this mic?
Yeah. Testing? Wow, this is different. Yeah, so identifying the how, because if you know how things are being transmitted, if you know how trauma is being passed down from one generation, then you can also know how to disrupt that process, how to disrupt the cycle. And the next slide, I've already talked about that, so we can go to the next slide after that. I had a few questions to leave you all with. Like, once again, Mr. Kata can't really hit the nail. I feel like, I'm like, did you see my presentation before I came up? Just things that we can all start to think about as we all take responsibility. How can we encourage more open and safe conversation between parents and children? Because as we've seen, it's very difficult. It's a very difficult balance. What are some of our unique strengths as Rwandans that the future generations can draw on? And how can we as a community support each other? And then I just had a quote to leave you all with, and it was, "Let no one mistake us for the fruit of violence, but that violence, having passed through the fruit, failed to spoil it." So we're not spoiled people. Thank you so much for listening and for taking the time to hear.
All right, I don't know about you guys, but I wanted to just thank Lisa for the presentation and the work that she has done. I think it was really educated us and it opened our eyes, and I'm hoping for more future research from her and the likes. I'm hopeful. And so for now, we're going to welcome our mayor, Armajit Sohi. And for those of you that don't know him, all right, for those of you that don't know him, he was sworn in as the 36th mayor of Edmonton on October 26, 2021. He immigrated to Edmonton at 18 years old, where he and his beautiful wife raised a daughter. He started his career with the city as a public transportation driver. He then became a city councilor for Edmonton. He then served as a member of parliament, as the Minister of Infrastructure in the Communities, and the Minister of Natural Resources. And so, can you please help me welcome Mayor Armajit Sohi.
I actually don't know how to start my remarks, because after watching the presentation of what Lisa had to say, and also before that seeing the pictures and the lives and stories through those pictures of the people who are no longer with their families because of the genocide that took place, and the impact of that trauma on you, on communities, how that lives on. It's difficult. It is difficult to talk about these wrongs of the past and think about what we can do together to learn from that and move forward together. I think Lisa's presentation not only reminded us these atrocities, the impact of that, but it also showed us the resiliency of the community. And I think that resiliency was present in Lisa herself. Standing on the stage as a child of parents who lived through genocide, and then trying to capture the stories and experiences of her, I would say, peers, had they been not killed or not been murdered. And just reliving that pain, but living in a way that builds that strength, that builds the resiliency. So I really want to commend Lisa. I don't know if she's here. I think she's backstage and all that. So it also actually reminds me about my own survival and my own story, because some of you may know that I am also a survivor of torture and a survivor of imprisonment. Not to the level that your community faced, but it's a link. It is a link of pain. It is a link of being robbed of your dignity. It is a link where you feel isolated and disconnected from the community. It's also a link where you don't see hope. For 21 months when I was incarcerated, out of those 21 months, 18 months were in solitary confinement where I had no link to the outside world and no link to my family for all these number of months. So it reminded me of that as well, because when we can share that collective pain with each other, when we can share that individual pain and turn that into collective action or collective story of the communities, I think that is the value of this commemoration. Coming together to pay our tribute and live the memories or keep those memories alive in your heart. It is absolutely critical. It's absolutely important when we come together. But it's more than that. It is about forging a path forward that allows us to connect with each other's experiences and through those experiences figure out a way how we can work together. I think that unique community is present here in Edmonton, because Edmonton is a place where people have come from all over the world. People who have different experiences. People have lived different realities. I had my own reality. People in this room, you have your own realities. Then there are the realities of the indigenous peoples of this land. First Nations, Métis and Inuit peoples. Their trauma, your trauma, my trauma could actually come together in a way that we can make a commitment to reconciliation, that we can make a commitment to work together, that things that have happened in the past should never happen in the future. I think that is the power of these commemorations, because it reminds us that we as a community, as people, when we are united, we can stand to evil. That we can work together to build a better world, a better community here that thinks about each other, that is compassionate toward each other, that thinks in a way that wrong done to one is wrong done to all. I think that is the value of these commemorations. I really want to appreciate that you have given me the ability to be here with you today. To be with you, to share my story, but listen to your stories. And together, commit to look at what can we do to build an Edmonton for all of us. An Edmonton when we feel that this is our place. That we can share our stories in a safe way and engage with each other to build on those collective strength, that collective strength. then we can also look at the challenges that we face today and how we work together to overcome those challenges, whether those challenges are the racism that we face in our cities, whether those challenges are the trauma that we see on our streets in houselessness, in mental health, in addictions, in the opiate crisis. Because all those things do link back to that trauma of the peoples. Right? So I think that's my desire as your mayor, as someone that you have entrusted to lead this city, that we can work together as a community, as Edmontonians, to build a better Edmonton for all of us. So thank you so much for having me today. I want to thank all the organizers for putting this together, and also inviting me, inviting MLA David Shepherd, and inviting our Minister Meru to be part of this. And because we as a community, we need to work together. And this is a good example of us working together. I would have to leave right away because I have another event to go to. But thank you so much once again for having me part of this commemoration.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And now I would like to introduce our next speaker, MLA David Shepherd. He is a second-generation Canadian and lifelong resident of Edmonton. His mother arrived from the Netherlands in 1948, and his father from Trinidad in 1967. MLA Shepherd's first love was music, and he spent many years as a professional musician and studio engineer. He holds a diploma in music performance and studio recording from McEwen University and a bachelor's degree in professional communication from Mayoral University. Prior to being elected as a member for Edmonton, he led a position as a trainer, facilitator, writer, and communications officer in the municipal, provincial, and federal public service. He was re-elected for a second term in April 2019 and serves as the Alberta NDP critic for health and a member of the Standing Committee of the Legislative Office. Since his election, David has been an active advocate on a number of issues, including access to housing, ending the stigma around substance abuse and mental health, championing small businesses and new entrepreneurship models, such as tech and startups and co-working. He also is in support of the rights of marginalized communities, such as 2SL LGBTQ+ community and the BPOC of Alberta, as well as extending services for newcomers, empowering diverse communities, advocating for arts and organization, promoting active living and transportation, especially in the downtown area. And through his work, he's developed a reputation for engaging speeches, thoughtful commentary on public policy, and candid discussion on his journey with mental health. Please welcome MLA David Shepherd.
Good evening, everyone. I apologize, it seems my staff set the long introduction. It's my honor to join you here all this evening on behalf of Rachel Motley, all of my colleagues in the Alberta NDP caucus, and indeed all at the Alberta legislature, who I know have their thoughts with you here tonight to commemorate those lost in the 1994 genocide of the Tutsi people in Rwanda. It was a very moving video presentation. I've had the chance to join you in years past, but that was the first time that I've seen it in that way, and to sit and watch all of those families, to have someone beside me say, that was my mother and father. That was the family of the woman that brought you a bottle of water. That hits home in a whole new way. I've appreciated everything I've had the chance to hear and learn here tonight. I was deeply saddened to hear that there is a rise of denial of this genocide. Something that people here in this room saw with their own eyes. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. That has been part of our history as the human race. We, of course, have seen folks try to deny the Holocaust of the Jewish people. We have seen people continue to try to deny that. People continuing to deny the legacy of residential schools here in Canada. The ongoing genocide of Indigenous women and girls. Indeed, we see folks already stepping up trying to deny the ongoing atrocities that we are seeing against the people in the Ukraine. So, I can only imagine what it is like for those of you here, for whom this is your legacy, who lost family, who lost friends, to have gone through that experience and to see this now. But what I can offer, from the position that I am honored to hold as an MLA here in the province of Alberta, is my solidarity with you. And that I hear you and I see you. And I will repeat this truth, that in 100 days, between April 7th and July 15th, 1994, as many as 800,000 people were systematically murdered throughout Rwanda. The vast majority Tutsis. A cold, calculated, intentional campaign of slaughter. An astounding scale of brutality that turned neighbors against neighbors. Former friends against friends. This took place, and today we remember all of those who perished in that genocide. And I recognize all of you who have lost loved ones, who endured this experience, who have parents and family who did. And so we stand today with all of you as survivors, who carry the memories and the scars of this brutal genocide. We recognize your courage, as has been said by many here tonight, that it demonstrates that recovery and reconciliation are possible, even after such a brutal tragedy. We stand with you as members of the Rwandan community. Recognize the strong and vibrant community that you represent, you have built here in Canada, that you have built here in our city. And I recognize the work that you continue to do through the Memory Keepers Association, through your own relationships, through the stories that you pass on to your children, to other generations, that you share with us. Because the truth is important. Even when it is painful, it brings people together. Lies cause division and drive us apart. And sadly, we live in an age of conspiracy and misinformation used to spread hate. And I am so sorry that has spread now to your community. But as has been said by others tonight, we can fight back. Everyone has the opportunity to use their voice, to arm themselves with evidence and the truth, to bring us as communities together. As UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon wrote, the history of Rwanda teaches us an essential lesson. While the capacity for the deepest evil resides in all societies, so too do the qualities of understanding, generosity, and reconciliation. Let us nurture these hallmarks of our common humanity to help build a life of dignity and security for all. We must all take responsibility to combat hatred in all its forms, to stand against lies and propaganda used to turn people against each other, to work to ensure such unconscionable acts, such unspeakable crimes are never permitted to happen again. And I love that quote that Lisa shared. Let no one mistake us for the fruit of violence, but that violence, having passed through the fruit, failed to spoil it. That is the truth. That is the truth for all of you here as a Rwandan community in Edmonton. And that is a truth that we all can learn from in seeing your strength and your resilience. So thank you to the Memory Keepers for bringing this back. It is wonderful to see everyone together again after 2 years away and have this chance again to find strength in community. And I look forward to continuing to join you and to support you in this good work.
Thank you, Mr. David Shepherd. Up next, as you can see, we have quite a bit of distinguished members among us, and it's a privilege to have you guys here. Our next speaker is Minister Madu. He is a loving husband and father of 3. He was born and raised in the southern and eastern part of Nigeria. There, he attended the University of Lagos and graduated with a Bachelor's of Law honor degree. He was subsequently called to the bar in Nigeria. In 2005, he and his wife immigrated to Canada. Mr. Madu has been a lawyer for 16 years, practicing in both Nigeria and Alberta. In addition to running the Tutsis Law Office with his wife, Emem, he has worked with Legal Aid Alberta. He has volunteered with the Edmonton Community Legal Center and the Lawyer Referral Program of the Law Society of Alberta. Mr. Madu has also extensive public service experience, having worked as a senior technical advisor for the Government of Alberta, with a focus on legislative and regulatory reviews, operational and strategic public policies, issues of management, and stakeholder consultation. In 2009, alongside a team he worked with in the public service, Mr. Madu was awarded the Premier's Award of Excellence in the Bronze Medal category. He continues to volunteer with Alberta's Nigerian and Igbo communities. As a Nigerian immigrant, Madu has lived the Albertan dream, and now he's committed to ensure that this dream is alive and well for others. He is fiercely proud of the work he has completed to combat racism in the province and will continue to work tirelessly to remove barriers from of equality in this province. So without further ado, I welcome you, Minister Madu.
Thank you so much, Christine. Thank you, President. Thank you to all of you from the Rwanda community. This is a very solemn moment for me, as I know it is for each and every one of you in this place. As I sat down there and listened to the previous speakers, the poem, the photograph of family members who perished in that genocide, the presentation by Lisa, it was impossible for me to comprehend this sadness and the sorrow that all of you have gone through and continue to go through. I was getting out of high school in 1994 when the genocide took place. I remember very well the conversations that we had in my secondary school, in villages around where I was born and raised in southeast Nigeria. I remember very well the images that we saw. It was horrifying. On behalf of your provincial government and the Premier of Alberta, the Honorable Jason Kelly, I am honored for the invitation that you have extended to me and to your government to be here. I bring greetings from my colleagues from the United Conservative Caucus to each and every one of us in our caucus sends their greetings, and they have asked me to thank you for your strength, for your resilience. You know, when I received the invitation, I said to myself that I won't be here. I have been in Red Deer all morning. I drove from Red Deer to this place because I did not want to miss this opportunity. This will be my very first attendance of this commemoration, and I did not want to miss it. So I do thank, from the bottom of my heart, the memory keepers for the work that you have done to ensure that we never forget the genocide and the trauma and the devastation that my fellow brothers and sisters from Rwanda endured. But many of you may not know this. Like the survivors and the children of the survivors of that genocide, I too is the son of survivors of another genocide that the world is yet to recognize. I am of the Igbo tribe in Nigeria. Between 67, 70, there was a brutal civil war between the then Nigerian government and a brand new country called Biafra. The Igbos are the people that make up Biafra. So my people, and between 67 and 75 million of my people were slaughtered. 3 million men, adult men and women, and 2 million children. An additional 1 million children died of what is called Washoko. You can pick up your phone and Google it. Washoko means death by starvation, like the Holodomor. So that is me in a nutshell. I was born 4 years after the end of that brutal civil war. And I hear Lisa loud and clear when she says that sometimes it is difficult for those who've been through those type of experiences to talk about them. That is true. My father, who fought in that war till today, have not said a word about that war, because there is hardly any family in southeast Nigeria that did not lose at least 3 family members between 67 and 70. So when I say that It is impossible and unimaginable for people that have not been through that experience to fully grasp what this community has gone through. I mean it. Because I can relate very much with your own experience and experiences. So I thank you for keeping this memory alive. I thank you for the strength that those who survived that genocide had to ensure that they were able to tell their stories and pass it on to their children so that we would never forget. It is also the reason why we must remain vigilant. We must remain vigilant. The trajectory of my life has been defined by my own experiences. And so vigilance and remembrance, long memory, are vital to make sure that we can all work towards a world, a society where that would never, ever happen again. That is a hope. That is my hope. Sadly, oftentimes there is a stark difference between hope and reality. And we are seeing that today in Ukraine, where a brutal, petty dictator has unleashed unimaginable devastation on a peaceful nation, on a peaceful people. What is their crime? They seek to protect the territorial integrity of their homeland. They seek to keep their people safe. They seek to keep their culture, their identity, their way of life for themselves, for their children, and for their generation of children yet unborn. That right there is their crime. That was also the crime of your fathers and mothers and sisters, uncles and aunts, brothers, sons and daughters. Those were the crimes of my own parent. I am the seventh of 11 children. Other than my sister after me, and myself and the younger ones, the rest of my siblings went through that brutal 67-70 war. That was their crime. What was it? We wanted a homeland where we can keep our people safe. We wanted a homeland where if a bomb goes off, it is not going to kill our people in thousands. We wanted a homeland where we could raise our children in accordance with our culture, our language and tradition. Those were the crimes of my fathers and mothers. So, the government that I represent, I assure you, I fully appreciate you as fellow citizens, fellow Albertans, that you have chosen to build your life right here in our province. It is because of you and me, your daughters, my daughters, your sons, my sons, that led me into public life. So that we can build a society in which all of us have the opportunity to live our God-given potential in peace and quiet, so that you can raise your children in accordance with your values, with your culture, with your tradition, so that we all of us can feel respected. That has informed all of the work that I have done since being elected. I've had the greatest pleasure of my life to now serve in 3 ministries. First, as Minister of Municipal Affairs, then as Minister of Justice and Solicitor General, and now as the Minister of Labor and Immigration. One of the finest moments of my career in government was the passage of Bill 63. Bill 63 banned the practice of codding. Codding, essentially a practice whereby law enforcement gets to stop people like you and me on the road, not because we have committed any crime, simply because of the color of our skin. That was the finest moment in my career. I went on to appoint a hate crime coordination unit within the Department of Justice and Solicitor General, so that we can hold people who have committed acts of hatred and racism and discrimination against us. I went on to appoint a hate crime liaison officer within the Department of Justice. I established the Alberta Security Infrastructure Program that provided $100,000 to cultural communities like yours and mine, religious communities, so that we can better protect those institutions. I deployed men and women of law enforcement, both in uniform and undercover officers across our major cities. So, in our own small way, please know that we are doing our part to make sure that all of us can live a fulfilled life right here in the province that you have now called home. Once again, I thank you. I thank the memory keepers. I thank your leaders for the invitation. And thank you. May God bless you. May God bless the people of Rwanda. And may God bless our province. Thank you a lot.
All right, so we just have 2 more things and we'll be concluding. Next, we're going to have a speech done via video by the Rwandan High Commissioner, Prosper Hindiro.
Dear Mr. Yves Brusso, Chairman of Memory Keepers Association, dear friends, fellow Rwandans, distinguished guests, dear genocide survivors, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. First of all, allow me to thank the Memory Keepers Association leadership, and in particular its chairman, Mr. Yves Pinutso, for the preparation and organization of the 28th commemoration of the 1994 genocide against Tutsis in Rwanda, which gathers all of us here today. I would like to extend my gratitude to all of you mentioned above for having chosen to stay in solidarity and be with us in these difficult moments. Since the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic 2 years ago, this is the first time after 2 years that we have been able to meet in person. Though I would have liked to be with you, but be assured that you are with me, you are with us in our prayers and thoughts. As you all know, every April 7, our country Rwanda marks the commemoration of the 1994 genocide against Tutsis in Rwanda in the honor and respect of more than 1 million innocent people who lost their lives during those tragic moments in just a period of 100 days, spanning from 7th of April to 4th of July 1994. Today, we are here to keep alive the memory of our loved ones. We are here to stand side by side with those who survived, with those who lost friends and families, and who are still struggling to overcome the consequences of genocide. We are here to reject the genocide ideology, negationism, denial, and revisionism. We are here to remind ourselves and the entire world that justice for the victims is needed today than ever. For the survivors, genocide is not the past, but a never-present from the trauma they continue to suffer. The commemoration continuously reminds the humanity to ensure that the atrocities committed are not forgotten and never happen again. The consequences of genocide have badly impacted the mental health of genocide survivors. Mr. Chairman, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, to our fellow survivors of genocide, thank you once again. Thank you for your resilience and courage, because that courage represents the triumph of over the evil you have experienced. I want to assure you that you are not alone. You may have lost your loved ones, but there is a family you did not lose, and that is your nation, Rwanda, and friends. Let the past not overtake you, because there is nothing we can do about the past, but there is something we can do about the present and the future. The lessons of our history have united us more and are teaching us the value of good leadership that cares for the well-being of all citizens. We have learned the importance of working together to build a better future for all Rwandans. This is a moment to share Rwanda's tragic history and learn from it. Indeed, it is an opportunity to reflect, especially with young people and the new generation, on what made the genocide to happen, and at times to try to understand how the unthinkable happened by confronting our past. Moving forward, Rwanda has been transformed politically, socially, and economically, and all efforts made have contributed to the realization of the economic transformation. Rwanda enjoys peace and stability. It is today ranked among the safest places in the world, even contributes to global peace through participating in peacekeeping, and globally ranks third largest contributor to UN peacekeeping forces. Today, a growing number of genocide deniers and revisionists do not only focus on denying the genocide and or hiding the truth, but also they aim at spreading false narratives to hide the role of the perpetrators. It is very unfortunate that today genocide perpetrators continue to be offered platform, be it on mainstream media or social media, in order to distort facts and attempt to rewrite our history. Such actions continue to haunt survivors and their families, hence slowing down the healing process. Rwanda will continue to work and share the information regarding genocide perpetrators, deniers, and revisionists with countries across the world, and looking forward for more collaboration with you all in identifying and arresting those still at large. Relatedly, more works to fight genocide deniers are still needed to help heal the wounds of genocide survivors. I would like to take this opportunity to urge you all, Rwandans, survivors, friends of Rwanda, to take a stand and fight this evil wherever it occurs. Mr. Chairman, dear friends, Banyarwanda Bavandimwe, our country has emerged stronger from the tragedy and became a nation of hope, prosperity, and equal opportunities for its people. Today, the country is stable and progressing. Lastly, I wish to comfort genocide survivors here present and wish them to remain strong. I urge you to continue to be strong during this painful period that we have just started. Stay assured that the government of Rwanda, the people of Rwanda, and friends of Rwanda stand with you and will always support you. Murakoze cyane. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Honorable Hosbahidiro. Before we invite our MK8 president to come, I just wanted to thank all the organizers that have been here, that have really taken the time to come and put this together for us. Like they said, it's been 2 years since we have come like this in person due to COVID. I don't know about you guys, but it's very healing to see everybody here in person and to commemorate together and to remember the lives that we lost together. And then I also just wanted to thank the parents that are here and just give honor where honor is due, that have shared their experiences with us, at least for me, my mom. I would just like to thank her with everything that she has gone through and her experience. She lost her entire family, her sisters, her parents. And so for me, I've never gotten to meet my grandparents on either side of my family. Never got to meet my aunts and uncles and my cousin that would have been. And just like Lisa was saying in her presentation, it's very hard. Yeah, it's a lot of things, and hopefully, you know, us that are the diaspora of Rwanda and the future generation could hopefully start to talk about this and, you know, also heal from it, from the intergenerational trauma that we have gone through. But yes, I'm just thankful for you guys and for the parents that had the strength and the resilience to share their stories, because we are a product of you. We are a product of what you went through. We're a product of your trauma. But we have so much hope because you show us the hope, and you show us that you keep going, so we have to keep going. And so thank you so much for that. And without further ado, I would like to present the President, Eve of MK, to please come and give the closing remarks.
Like I started, I'll say shalom, praise God, assalamu alaikum, mwiriwe, muraho, murakomeye, habari, nzuri sana, right? Yeah, because you know what, before I get started actually saying, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished dear Honorable Minister of Immigration and Labor, and who's here actually in the presentation of the Premier of the government of Rwanda, and you know what, there's no way we can actually thank you enough. We know that's a busy time, but you made it possible, and that's beyond any words. I want to also acknowledge that this morning I received a very good message from the leader of NDP, who couldn't be here, but who said that she's keeping us in her prayers and thoughts, and she's also pledging to put work into making sure there's a policies, anything possible that can accommodate our needs, our problems, in order for us to be able to continue to fight and to strive. That was a beautiful thing to wake up to, and we thank you very much. We can't, for sure, continue to proceed without even acknowledging the support that we've been receiving from our brother, MLA Honorable David Shepherd. I think if you remember well, Minister Madu said it was the first time, and it's crazy time, I believe, from political spectrum, but he made it possible for him to be here because he's going to be his first. But I believe that Brother Shepherd over here is not a stranger person among us, right? He's been coming every single time we just invite them, he comes. And including actually Claire, who is also the office manager of your office. She's been doing a tremendous job to ensure that anything that we need, you know, is also accessible. I want to acknowledge that the brother Said Ahmed, who was supposed to be here to come alongside with the minister, but who couldn't be here because of illness, and the entire, you know, family. So we acknowledge the hard work. Even the office of the minister, either every Roy, who's probably somewhere, your press secretary, who has been in a very, 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 I think, learning, you know, communication, you know, with us, hand in hand, in order to make sure that your presence here becomes possible and also tangible. I can't just even proceed without acknowledging the Vice President of Memory Keepers Association. There's so much about the gentleman because our parents were so close, were so friends. So I believe my father, who was political sciences, doctor and a teacher, also businessman, was very friendly to his father, and my mom, who was also a medical doctor, was very friendly to Mama Irene, you know, his mom. So I thought the first thing I did when I went to Rwanda after the 1994 genocide, you know, we got misplaced, went everywhere. I went to Tumba, where this, you know, they were living, asking for them. I didn't know. I thought they were all killed. So I was so surprised actually. In a few years in Edmonton, I was able to locate Serge Bayingana, who was also the former president of MKR, that I also acknowledge, you know, that they were still alive. It's a beautiful thing to acknowledge, I mean, to commemorate today, seeing both of you, because our parents and the entire families are no longer there. I want to also acknowledge Mr. Seth Rubarake, who's been also the president of Memory Keepers Association. It's not an easy task, but you guys, you paved the ways for us to stand taller to anything that would probably just impede us from continuing, you know, the journey you started. So you have my full respect. So I just want to also say, you know, executive committee leadership of, you know, MKR. I was touched by Lisa. Lisa, we had a very good conversation yesterday. I saw Aurora, the younger sister. I saw, you know, Daima, who's now probably mom, right? You know, so close. That's my wishes, you know. Yes, but I'll tell you, in Rwandan culture, you know, for us to be able to say that we're happy for you, you need to show us that there is a child or something. So. So I'm not really, I think I'm growing, getting closer to my culture instead of, right? Yes, so it's lovely because what shocked me deeply was the zeal and then the hard work that they're putting into making sure that the memory, you know, and the history of this genocide that we all endured never gets to be erased by no one. Even if they have no probably clue about what we endured, but they are still over there saying, you know what, we're here to do the work, and we're not actually being, you know, afraid or being, in any way, intimidated by whatsoever going, you know, around. We're here to stand taller to those fights, and we're here to fight it back. Something that I also want to mention. I was 6 that time. Yes. So I saw my mom being raped when I was on the back of someone called Josepha, who was just some local Pentecostal person, because my mom was she was busy with the medical career, but she was also a very spiritual, prayerful person. So, because no one knew me, and I was looking, and I used to have long hair, they say, and I looked like a girl. So, somebody put me on her back and said, that's my child, on instruction of my mom, because she said, if this one is gone, my entire family is gone. It was on April the 9th, 12:45 p.m. That when we were gathering together to celebrate the wedding anniversary between my parents, he had people who started abroad with him, who were also doctors like him, who were invited. So what they did was to say, when he invited them to say what in regard to the wedding anniversary that they were celebrating, they said, you are the one who should do that because today is the end of your life. He never thought that people he went to school with, he spent time praying with, he shared almost every single memory of life, would end up betraying him and turning back on him. People who preach the gospel, people who are evangelists, people who are singing in choirs, those are the ones who turned back on him. I remember seeing my dad, who was 6'4" and a giant basketball player, as he used to really speak highly of himself, being attacked by students and the people from different corners, using a skewer. If you know brochette, a skewer, first and foremost, after being, touched by ropes because he was strong, after being cut with machetes, after he got down on his knees, they said it's a time now to take your pants off and to show you how we deal with the Tutsis. He faced genital mutilation. I saw that as a child. My brother Ivan and my other brothers faced the same thing. My other 5 siblings, including 3 girls who were there, they were also raped. So then after cut into pieces before they were even fully killed. So why am I sharing this story? I'm sharing this story because some of the times, or most of the times, we hear stories that are being fabricated by people who have no link, no single relationship with the history that we, genocide survivors of the genocide perpetrated against the Tutsis of Rwanda, we have endured. So today I want to say, you gotta stop. Because we have never voted in anyone to tell our stories. We're still around to tell those stories. When I was 6, it was impossible for me to stand and fight. Basically because probably my dad and my mom always emphasized that Rwanda was a country of milk and honey and humanity. That every time that I needed to learn from actually the footsteps of my grandfathers and ancestors that said you needed to be able to provide anything to anyone who's in the need of anything. Because humanity, that's what it says. We never kill, we provide supplies, we feed, we heal. We can do anything to include, to be able to help people to strive and survive. But today, that person who was 6, Daima who was not born, Lisa who wasn't there, Dora who wasn't there, Nwari and Arnold, we are here now. We're no longer 6. I always believe that strongly that sometimes they use a rhetoric that's very intimidating that says that you can't do anything. If I need to be a soldier to fight for my history, I always say, yes, now I can. If I need to use a political influence, I'm so glad I have ministers and the MLAs and the mayor of Edmonton and the premier and, people from different spectrum to support us, to ensure that we never go back to what we experienced. We hear stories, somebody touched the base on religious affiliation. One of the things that I want to just mention before in front of our leaders here is that there is also growth in spiritual communities. That's actually conceptualizing or defining this time of a commemoration as witchcraft momentum, as a time that has not something to do with demons, that we're triggering or maybe inviting demons back. But I have a special message for those on behalf of Memory Keepers Association, on behalf of the generation of Lisa and the Daima and the Arnold, and on behalf of my parents and our parents who are not there, and on behalf of the uncles and the aunts who were able to survive. When the genocide perpetrated against the Tutsis of Rwanda was occurring, those people, they were praying for all those Hutu militia in Interahamwe to be able to kill more and as many as they could, so that apocalyptic momentums that they associated with the Bible could really come to life. They did nothing to rescue me. They did nothing to rescue my people, my community. So why now? But I would love to say that before I continue, we know I was very actually eager to have Stacy, who is also the chief executive officer of the Jewish Federation body here, but she couldn't be here. But I know we and Jewish people, Jewish community, we stand together. I'm mentioning this because there is, when you look at the job that either Parliament, Federal Parliament, or the legislature have done, we can see that there is actually an act that specifically protects, the Holocaust. So why not for us, MLA? Why not for us, Minister? Can we have, please, an act, genocide perpetrated against the Tutsi of Rwanda Act, since we are also Canadians? I think this is need to happen, because I think if it doesn't happen, we're gonna need to make a petition, and we're gonna call upon Ukrainians, brothers and sisters also to join us, in Jewish community to join us, Armenians to stand with us. Because I think we need to have a coalition. We need to tell people that either Tutsis, that Jewish, Armenians, Ukrainians, we're not human toys. We're not toys to play with. I think we need to stop these games. We need to very politically, in any way, engage in any way that's peaceful and safe to stand to these fights, and I think we have the tools. I'm now calling upon violence, because we come from a community of humanity. So, and I'm speaking this, I'm so happy that I'm just expressing this in front of one of my professors. Professor Linda, please stand up so that everyone will really see you. There's a reason why I acknowledge Sophie. Dr. Sophie, please stand up. Brother, please stand up too. There's a brother next to Dr. Sophie. Please stand up. You know why? Because when I was in the School of Social Work, something that really was emphasized by Dr. Adinda was stay true to who you are. Never, shy away from representing your identity and really be who you are. Because social work is social justice driven. It can be political. It's part of the things of the social work. But sometimes we can lose our identity because we want to, fit into something. As Lisa talked about it, Daima talked about it, Karaki, really, Brother Karajo, Uncle Karaki talked about it, right? So, and that's beautiful. Dr. Linda, what she has been doing with hand with Dr. Sophie was to support our community, to bring that academic aspect, a force, to be able to bring our stories into the, tangible articles and research, so that people may know what we endured, and we need to commend them for that great work. And I believe when I saw Lisa, and she said she's working with Dr. Sophie, she remembers the conversation I had with her. I say, maybe you should be a friend of Minister Madhu so that you can be our next minister. maybe Daima should be a friend of Emily David Shepherd, so that next time we could have somebody to really step in his shoes to continue to represent and carry the legacy. Maybe why not we would so becoming an Emily? Because listen, having studied political sciences, I understand that there is no fight when you are sitting in the back seat. You need to have the frontline troopers who are going to be fighting so hard, and being politicians, EPS, a member of the Canadian Armed Forces. That's where we need to be. Being in the media, where here on the global TV, whatever, that's where we need to be. Because some people are telling other stories that never even have been able to experience, or maybe they have no clue about. So please, let's just continue that legacy. So before I just mention something else, I think I want to also make another prayer or just a request. We're talking about now creating a space for young folks or even us to tell our stories. But right now there's no memorial site of the genocide perpetrated against the Tutsis of Rwanda here in Edmonton. But there is a project that we kind of put forth requesting for that, and we would love to have Minister Madu, if possible, an honorable MLA, and the worship mayor of Edmonton to join forces to advocate for us. For you to be able to understand the essence of our request, like I said, there is, when you look at the curriculum, education curriculum today, even the language used in the parliament, I don't know about the legislature, by different politicians, what terminology do they use? They use Rwanda genocide, or something that implies there was Rwanda against, or I don't know, double genocide. That's the genocide. I mean, that's the language that's being used by those denying the genocide that I endured. Can you imagine if I had a politician, an MLA, or an educator, a teacher, using the language that triggers my trauma? So why not having that memorial site here, even getting the funds to be what could be called the Rwandan Canadian Center, where we can have actually specific safe places for not only the Rwandan Canadian youth to come over, but all Canadians to come over and learn about our history. That's also a request for your advocacy. We may need to be able to even work with the Ministry of Education here to change or to revise, to review the curriculum concerning the Rwandan history. Because every single time I talk to those kids or young folks who are in high school, the language they use is the Rwandan genocide. And we wonder how somebody can tell our story while we're here. For those people who are in education system, there is a theory, but there's a real life experience. Why can we partner with the Ministry of Education, with our organization, to provide and deploy genocide survivors who can actually add practical life experiences, real life experiences, to those aspects being taught in school? Can we do that? So we would love, really, we welcome actually the Minister of Education to give us a call if possible, to send us an email if possible, to see how we can forge those working relationships so that we can rectify, change things before some other people who are actually denying our genocide can really, dance over the drums of those gaps. And I would also want to emphasize that MLA, I know you're busy, you have a busy schedule, and Minister Madu, you have also legal background. I'm pretty sure that our Premier will be able to also to hear from what happened here? Can we ensure that moving forward from this day, when you go back to your respective workplaces, ensure that no other politician, MLAs, all across the province, ever used Rwanda genocide? Please. I received so many compliments as a social worker. I'm now on a master's degree in clinical social work because of my community. It's hard when somebody tells you, like Mama Daima, or someone else, or Pamela, who's also the president, who's been also the president of the memory keepers that I acknowledge, tells you that I went to counseling. Somebody used a language that makes me feel I should never go back to that person. So, I know Dr. Linda, you're here. You're now probably representing University of Calgary, but you're wearing so many hats. Dr. Sophie, same thing. I would love to see, we're going to actually start the action, because we want the memory keepers to be like an organization like no other, to advocate for us so that we can have scholarships allocated to the people, to the members of Memory Keepers Association, so that we can have more psychologists like Lisa, more social workers like Elisa, more political scientists like those ones we never have, or probably we lost to this genocide. I think we're going to start writing letters saying we pleading you to help us, to support us this way. Because when you look at our families, we don't have enough income. We come here with language barriers. Back in Rwanda, all these years, since 1959, Tutsi people were denied of the right to education. I don't know if you also have a degree. So what are we going to do? Because we are eager to help contribute to the socio-economic development of this nation that we thank so much, Canada. But can you help us, at least empower us in that way? I was so speaking to some of the members of my committee. I say, if we are the committee that's going to be sitting there, only meet just around the commemoration, no. That won't be any justice to our people. We need to stand taller and fight hard. There'll be people, meet people like you, all of you who gathered here, who understand us, to advance our lives, so that we can sustain our survival, as the brother Clark said, and so that we can actually have the generation, further generation, strive, because right now we survive, right? So I may say much, but before I just conclude, want also reiterate what the brother Minister Madu said. Today, we genocide survivors of the genocide perpetrated against the Tutsis Rwanda, we know for sure that Ukraine and Ukrainians are undergoing heavy times. Times that we can't even put into words. We want to send a message to those brothers and sisters that we are standing with them. We can relate to the experiences they are having. If they need the help to advance anything that can actually lead to something tangible, legal or financial support, anything, we can forge that coalition to become a strong and loud voice that can actually stand taller to those superpowers, the powers of evil, that think that only them can survive and thrive at the expense of lives of others. I know for sure there was some sisters from Ukrainian communities that we had invited. We want to also send a clear message to our sisters and brothers from Armenian community, survivors community, that we also hear them. I'm pretty sure there's also First Nation communities that we have invited, and also, yes, the brother is here. We are probably in the same boat, so we're together. The good thing that I want to thank either the federal government, even Premier Jason Kenney, and everyone from NDP, starting from the senior leadership, is that though there's differences, but there's always effort to ensure that they fight for us. And I would love to really extend our gratitude to all of them, to put efforts to make sure, like Minister Madu said, to be able to put in places, policies that would actually better our lives. The policies that actually really address and tackle those hardships, including racism, that no one probably wants to talk about. We thank you very much for your hard work, and we're looking forward to continue to work together. I know there is a M587 and the Bill 94 that came all across from different, work done by different MLAs and MPs. I'm pretty sure that the request we put forth, will be probably just among the top priorities. And we also acknowledge that Minister Nshuro has been doing so much to ensure that the Rwandan community across Canada receives, supports, right? And also either NDP on the federal level and also Conservative Party on the federal level. All of you guys, we're so thankful for everything you're doing for us on behalf of us, we citizens, especially those ones who are in need of, more supports, to ensure that we all get to grow together, strive together. So now one is left behind. So my fellow aid maintenance, Rwandan, fellow Rwandan citizens and fellow Rwandan Canadians, there is no way that I can thank you really. Look at you. We worked so hard. I remember that this week, some of us really spent. I remember going to work without sleeping at all. On the 7th, I had not slept. My vice president also, who's also, a father and a husband to somebody, same. Secretary, same, everyone. We didn't know that you could turn out to make us, feel like, we're not alone. I don't know how to thank you because we don't clap. But you know what? I would say, Imana ibaho umugisha cyane. Kandi muragahana amata muri beza. So something that I was also, before I conclude, Minister Madu and Emily and my professors here and the brother from First Nations, and brother Chris from Nigeria, and Seto Teyo from Liberia, who was here somewhere. I don't know where they are. Where are they? Are they here? Brother from African Center, Sharif Hajj, and everyone who was also gathered here. The genocide that we endured is not, has not stopped by God from heaven without using people, Because I know spiritual people may just try to bring that superficial miracle. The genocide we're here to commemorate has been stopped by RPA, Rwandan Patriotic Army, RPF, Rwanda Patriotic Front, but led by His Excellency President of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. There are some people who may just argue with that. I'm the witness. I spent 6 months in a coma. The soldier who rescued me was in Kotanyi. I didn't know how to pray. I have even lost hope in God because I prayed. My mom taught me how to pray, but when I called God to help me, it seems like, He wasn't listening to my voice or my prayers. But I saw those people. Why? How do we believe in Jesus Christ that we've never seen? And we just get to really ignore and put to the side those ones we saw. I think my next research should probably explore that hypocrisy that exists in religious spirituality. I don't know what that is. I'm told to believe in David. I've never seen. To put Kagame, His Excellency Paul Kagame aside. To forget Kadogo and everyone, even including the members of Memory Keepers Association who are here, who left everything behind at the age of 18 or whatever, to fight for us, to die for us. How can we? That would be not a pathway to go. So I want to acknowledge even the members of Memory Keepers Association. I want to mention the names, but I know they are here. They were members of those forces that made our survival possible. The good thing is, we never get time to really tell your stories, but I want to thank you very much. I want to tell you, my mom is no longer alive, but every single time when I drive, my eyes, I find, I don't know, I strive with, I just, sometimes I don't know, I just find myself crying. I was the last born, she was my best friend. When I see either Mama Eugenie, Mama Sabine, who's the mother of Lisa, Mama Daima, and other mothers, the sisters who are here, who endured rape, also some other gender-based discrimination, so much endured. But who made it just efforts to stand taller to those problems, the difficulties, to continue to be those ones who carry our pride. Who have been doing anything possible to raise even the kids on their own when their husbands, spouses, are no longer there. Our sisters who didn't want to choose to kind of go through the dark ways, but who said, kama mbaya mbaya tutapambana. I don't know how to thank you. I don't know how to thank you, but I acknowledge you and I recognize that pride that you really just, bestowed to us so that we can be the men and the brothers that we are today. We are all born of women. I always remind the men, and we can't thank you enough. So I want to also thank our ambassador, Prosper Higiro, for all the beautiful message and the continuous support that he's really providing to us days and nights. And I can never thank him enough, or even thank enough, his entire team. So ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude this event, I want to make sure that everyone who is here has a very undivided gratitude, from the Memory Keepers Association. There is no commemoration without people like you. I remember when we were being killed, none of those ones that were expected to speak or to stand for us, to stand up for us, did anything. But you guys, you're here to tell us you're not alone, but at the same time, if ever someone ever comes for you, we come, we come after them. I don't know if I'm wrong, but I think that's a message that I'm conceptualizing in my mind. Am I wrong? No. So I'm not wrong. Am I wrong? No. So I'm not wrong. So genocide denies. Wherever you are, we're not alone. We grew up to become a men and a women, very equipped to be able to stand anything and withstand anything you can ever put forth against us. Our mothers and fathers chose humanity, and they lived lives driven by humanity. They never killed anyone. From the very beginning of Rwanda, we chose not vengeance, we chose humanity to forgive. When His Excellency Paul Kagame called us, invited us to take a part in the reconciliation process, we didn't say no, because that's the journey and the lifestyle of our ancestors. Those ones who used to feed the people with the milk, to feed the poor, to accommodate the poor in every single way, we are their seeds. We chose to continue to build our nation that way. So why are you now, after everything that you guys did, are still coming after us? Why, after forgiving, why still coming after us? Why, after forgiving, you killing my aunts, my sisters everywhere, we're still losing people to those people? Because they are using ambush and serial killing strategies to kill our people. Why? So that's the question I think I'm sending to them. I may be probably criticized tomorrow, whatever, on social media, but I'm not backing up. I'm here to fight, and to fight harder, to fight the battle. 89 police officers who have been really strongly standing with us all of the way. We had a very huge, remarkable support from them. We want to also say thank you. Canadian Armed Forces. Right now, even if I'm still kind of closing my door, even if there's no one in the house, because of the trauma problem I endured, but I know for sure what happened in Rwanda at that time will never happen, because I have soldiers, the Army, Canadian Forces, or those EPS members who can never allow things to happen. I have good politicians, I have good MLAs, I have those people who have really, you know, our needs to their heart, who are also striving, doing anything possible to really accommodate each of those needs. So, without any delay, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to really again say merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Murakoze cyane. Abanyarwanda umva muragabana ubuzima butazima, muragabana kandi umuntu kuko utari umuntu ari inyamaswa, kandi umva muragabana nyir'ubutaka ubaha kumutaka adataka. Uzi museka neza muri beza. Thank you.
Thank you, Eve. And so, just as the Express, I want to personally thank each and every one of you present here today for the 28th commemoration of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis of Rwanda. Thank you for being here. Thank you for participating. Thank you for listening. Thank you for remembering. And so our time has come to an end. I wanted to remind you guys that on next Saturday, April 16th at 8 p.m. is a vigil where survivors and their family will be to talk more openly about what specifically happened to their families and themselves, just as Eve testified today. And so this will be at the Edmonton Central Seventh-day Adventist Church. If you guys need more information, you guys want to discuss a little bit more about the question that our beloved Theo asked and the challenge that we proposed, he's here. There's a couple of people that are here as well that are ready to discuss should you need so. Again, thank you so much. You're all welcome to be released. My name is Christine Daima. I was your MC for the day, and thank you for being patient with me. Thank you. You guys are welcome to go.